Hey, my name is Lauren Sheehan and welcome to the Butterfly Council. This is a place for you to come and sit, maybe by an imaginary fire, where we can have a council, a wisdom council about your life, about the choices that you're making around how you treat your body, around the people that you have in your lives, the friends that you choose, the boyfriends, the lovers that you choose, about those moments that you have as you grow up and blossom into becoming a woman that can sometimes feel really exciting, sometimes feel awkward, sometimes feel scary, sometimes have a lot of pressure around them, and can hopefully be eased by having an older but not too much older wise mentor to give you some wisdom, guidance, advice, or shares around how to navigate these really important choices and milestones. Having your first period, having your first boyfriend, breaking up with someone that you don't like. What do you do once you're done? Once you leave your parents' house? How do you choose your life path? How do you make choices that honor yourself and listen to your body and listen to that knowing as you're starting to fly on your own more and more? And the Butterfly Council is that place. That I got that name from one of my favorite books about the cycles of life and how we receive feminine wisdom from the cycles of the moon. And it's called The 13 Original Clan Mothers by Jamie Sams. And it's a wonderful book. I highly recommend you check it out if that sounds inspiring. It's so beautiful. I love to personally read it every new moon or every time I'm bleeding. And it gives me a good context. It gives me a good place to start to really think about my own self and how I'm moving out into my life. And in that book, she says that once the girls in the tribe were past 11 summers, they were invited to join the Butterfly Council. And the Butterfly Council was a place where they were prepared for the budding and the blossoming of their womanhood. This is really important because we don't have this in our culture anymore. We don't have a place where girls who are your age can come and be safe and feel seen and heard and sit in circle with each other and sometimes with other older women and elder women and hear about the wisdom of their bodies, the intuition and their interconnectedness with nature, to hear the mythologies, to hear the experiences, and to be celebrated and to be initiated into these milestones of our womanhood. A lot of what we're seeing in our culture and what you might be experiencing is a lot of the opposite, a lot of disconnect, a lot of confusion, a lot of actual disrespect and maybe even hatred of our bodies, of our cycles. You might hear yourself or your friends or even your mom or other women talking about their cycles as something that is bad, something that is awful, that's horrible, it's painful, it's a burden. Talking about their bodies that way, having fights with their own selves, cutting themselves, having issues with eating, throwing up their food. This is a lot of what happened to me when I was your age. I'm 32 now, and I am the mother of a 22-month-old little boy. And a lot of my journey, the reason why I feel so called to share this and to start talking about this with girls and young women who are your age is because I felt really left out in this part of my life. I felt like when I got to the end of high school, I and even towards the end of college, I was lacking a skill set that I didn't even realize I was lacking until I started doing so much of this feminine work and this work with myself, with my body, connecting to these rhythms of cycles. And I was lacking a specific skill set that would help me navigate my own life pathway in a way that felt empowering to me and right, R-I-T-E, right, for me, and didn't have anything to do with what my parents were pressuring me to do, or what my, what I was reading about in books, what my friends were doing, what I saw everyone in movies doing or in the greater mass media culture doing. I was not a person who knew exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. And that was being asked of me, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I felt so much pressure to be perfect, to get it right. I was throwing up my food all through high school. I didn't feel at all like comfortable in my body or in my skin. I did not feel beautiful. I did not talk to myself in a very nice way. I didn't know how to choose boys that would treat me well. That's not true. I have had the pleasure of actually having boyfriends who have treated me very well, but what I did not know how to do was how to understand the difference between chemistry versus a really good boyfriend or a really good partner that was going to stick with me. I didn't really know how to actually have a good partnership and how to separate the sort of Disney princess fantasy that I saw a lot of growing up in with having an actual relationship with a boy. And part of that was because I didn't love my body. I didn't love myself. I hated my body. I hated the way I looked. I didn't feel good in my body, and I was constantly judging myself and everyone else. And it's really difficult to have great relationships with anyone else when you are so hateful to yourself, when you don't know how to access your own inner wisdom, when you are feeling so much pressure to do everything right and perfectly based on your parents or your friends or something that's outside of you. So I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to really have great friendships either because of that. And I so wanted that like perfect, I don't know if you guys at your age have seen this movie yet, but when I was a teenager, this movie came out called The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. That's about this sisterhood of girls, and the sisterhood. I wanted that circle of friends, and I really never had it. And I was constantly trying so hard to fit in, but never really fitting in, and excelling. I was excelling at school. I was a straight A student. I was great at academics and intellectual conversation, but socially it wasn't that great. And that caused a lot of pain for me when I was moving into my adulthood and starting to move away from my parents and into my career, into my life, trying to make choices from not knowing where my center was, from not knowing what my real voice was, not knowing what my real desires were, not having harmony between me and my body, my menstrual cycle, and caused a lot of pain and division. So I had to learn all of that. And that's a lot of what I spent my entire career life of my 20s doing up until I have become a mother now of a 22-month-old boy who is beautiful. And I became a personal trainer. I was a dancer all through high school. I channeled that into fitness and personal training and started my own business after college. and then found entrepreneurship in the personal growth world, and ran into some interesting teachers on the topics of femininity, the art of feminine presence, women's sexuality, learning to own my sexual energy, my feminine essence, exploring my yoni, my womb, yoga classes, moving my body, meditation, breathing, starting to open myself up and familiarize myself with my own internal voice, as well as my soul, my spirit, and how I could align all of those things. A lot of my fitness journey helped me understand food, helped me get crappy foods and the standard American diet out of my system, helped me learn to understand discipline with a fitness routine, and eventually had me understand what was like a loving way to move my body, a pleasurable way to move my body. And then I started later on a business teaching the art of feminine presence. I moved to Austin, Texas when I was 24. And I moved there as a CrossFit coach. I coached CrossFit for a while, and then I was kicked out of that job really, and I started growing a community teaching something called the art of feminine presence, which was a body of work by Rachel Jane Groover, which really brought me that circle of women and gave me a space to have a mentor, an elder woman, a woman who was about my age or a little bit older than my age now, for me, who I could look up to and who I could look at and see how she was being and how she was being in her body. And she would teach us these practices every week about how to connect to our womb, about how to feel and sense what felt true and real to us, what felt like the energy in our body was making us rise and giving us more pleasure versus giving us more contraction, and what was a no for us. There were practices about receiving attention from men, from other people. There were practices about finding our voice, opening our voice, speaking to groups. And eventually I started my own business doing these things with women. And I was doing a lot of public speaking. I made a YouTube channel. I made online courses at femininerhythm.com. And as I grew, my journey grew. I explored feminine sexuality and where the intersection of that, of sexuality and spirituality met, because I didn't feel that I had a sexual template that really felt beautiful to me. And I found some things that didn't work very well and were very harmful and traumatic, and I found some things eventually that were very, very beautiful and nourishing and healing, and helped me deepen into my body and feel comfortable with my sensuality, my sexuality. I eventually learned deeper practices with breathing and meditation and yoga, and there's a lot more that I'll share in later videos. But as I grew into my later 20s and eventually realized I wanted to have children and I wanted to be a mother, I was going through something called a Saturn return in my late 20s, and it's this time in our late 20s when we get really called back to ourselves, and we have to really look at everything that's come before and shift ourselves to become aligned with who we're really meant to be when we start to really blossom into more of our full womanhood once we're 29, 30, 31. And so for me, making a shift from entrepreneur, like independent woman, go, where I really never was able to have a relationship work. I went through many relationships over this period of time, and got my business off the ground here and there, but but honestly worked myself to the core. I ended up depleted. I ended up with adrenal fatigue. I ended up really, really draining myself. And part of that is because of the society we live in, because of the societal conditioning that we live in that does not teach us how to do the things that I want to teach you. The things that I want to teach you that I've had to teach myself and had other people teach me, and really learn to integrate, like how to sync my life with my menstrual cycle so that I'm not fighting against it but living with it. How to listen to my body when I need to slow down. How to know if an opportunity is right for me or if it's not. How to know if a person or a boyfriend or a potential husband is right for me or if it's not. How to know when I'm being loved and when I'm being not. All these things were not something that I learned, and they're not something that society teaches us, and it's not something that my parents taught me because they just didn't have the tools. So these are the things that I want to share with you here on the Butterfly Council, and it's just going to be a very organic process because it just is. And I want to get to know more about you. And as I know a little bit more about you as well, I will be able to understand a little bit more about what to share and how to help you better. But for now, I wanted to just intro what this channel is about, what I'm here to do, what I feel called to do. And what I feel like a lot of my life has prepared me to do is to offer my lived and embodied wisdom now at 32, having gone through the motherhood doorway. My son is now almost 2, and I'm still integrating that process. There's still a little bit there, but you know, it was the other last week I was at an ice cream shop and there was a group of teenage girls, and I suddenly looked at them, and for the first time in my life I thought to myself, like, wow, I'm not a teenage girl anymore. Like, I'm finally not a girl anymore. And I'm 32, you know, and I think that's completely normal. I don't think that we make that leap as quick as we're made to think that we should. But it makes me really want to get it. I'm almost getting teary because it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to have passed that passage, but it's also bittersweet, you know. It's a death in its own way. And that is how we grow as women. You know, our lives as women are like plants. We're like plants, we're like animals. We have a cycle of growth, and it doesn't look the way that most of us are taught how it looks. We live, we grow, we die, we birth, we live, we grow, we die, and we don't physically die. Our bodies don't die, but we grow in these cycles. You know, think about the cycle of nature in the year. We have winter time, and then spring comes and everything grows and blooms, and then it falls away in the fall, and then it goes into winter time, into this stillness again. And we're doing that all the time as women. So I hope that I can help you learn to love yourself and help you understand how to live in the natal way, in the female way, so that you can save yourself some self-judgment, and hopefully I can save you some of the mistakes, or a lot of the mistakes that I made, and give you some of the wisdom, a lot of the wisdom that I've acquired along the way. So thanks for listening, and I'll look forward for the next video.